It's just been confirmed that A Fistful of Dollars is getting an official remake, so let's take a quick look at everything we know about the project so far, including the creative team behind it and who's likely to star, as well as discussing whether such a remake has any chance of being a success. So it was recently announced via Deadline that a remake was in the works of the iconic 1964 western A Fistful of Dollars, which was famously directed by Sergio Leone and starred Clint Eastwood as a nameless drifter, who plays two feuding families off against each other in a town torn apart by their rivalry. And upon its release, the movie took the world by storm, launching the careers of its star and director, as well as spearheading a new subgenre called the spaghetti western, with A Fistful of Dollars eventually becoming part of a larger trilogy, which included For a Few Dollars More and The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. However, it seems that it's only A Fistful of Dollars that's in line for a remake. And not for the first time either, because just 4 years prior in 2020, a separate remake was announced by Mark Gordon Pictures, who were planning a contemporary TV retelling of the movie, with writer Brian Cogman in talks to adapt the series, having previously worked on Game of Thrones and The Rings of Power. But ultimately, this project never came to fruition. As a result, this latest version instead comes from Rome-based company Jolly Film, who actually produced the original 1964 movie. Also working on this new remake is Eurogang Entertainment, a company founded by 3 veteran Hollywood producers. The first of which is Gianni Nunari, best known for The Departed, Seven and Shutter Island. The second is Simon Horsman, known for The Space Between Us, The Bye-Bye Man and United Skates. And finally, the third is Enzo Sisti, famous for No Time to Die, Wonder Woman and The Passion of the Christ. So between them, this trio clearly have a lot of experience and a very impressive track record, with Nunari and Horsman saying that we are determined to produce a remake that does justice to the great Sergio Leone's classic. But despite this, there'll still be many who believe that a remake of A Fistful of Dollars is a bad idea, given that the original is widely considered a cinematic masterpiece, which would be difficult to replicate or improve upon. Even Sergio Leone himself was seemingly wary of revisiting the trilogy, having previously vetoed a sequel to The Good, the Bad and the Ugly from Luciano Vincenzoni, despite him being a longtime friend and collaborator who previously wrote the screenplay for the last 2 movies of the Dollars trilogy. However, with that being said, it does often get overlooked that A Fistful of Dollars itself was actually a remake of Akira Kurosawa's 1961 samurai film Yojimbo. And following this in 1996, the gangster movie Last Man Standing again featured a very similar premise, this time starring Bruce Willis in a Prohibition-era Texas town dominated by 2 rival gangs. So it could be argued that A Fistful of Dollars is actually a testament to remakes, and a good example of how the same basic premise can be successfully retooled multiple times to create something fresh and worthwhile. But it goes without saying that all of this really does hinge on the talent of those behind the scenes and their own unique creative visions. So before anything else, this new remake will have to decide whether it wants to be a completely different, radical take on the source material or an accurate, faithful adaptation of the original movie. Either way, both approaches will inevitably come with pros and cons, making it one of those projects that's probably going to be very hard to get right. Although, one noteworthy advantage that this remake has that many others don't is that the star of the original movie actually has a son of the right age and appearance to pretty seamlessly step into the role, with Scott Eastwood having already shown that he's up for the job in the 2016 western Diablo. However, all of these decisions will ultimately come down to those working on the movie, and for now that's all we really know about this upcoming remake. So I'd be interested to hear what you think about the film and how you would go about approaching the challenge of remaking A Fistful of Dollars in a way that's actually worthwhile. Also, while you're here, you might want to check out this video right here.